Hi everybody, it's Joni Young here. Welcome back for another painting tutorial in acrylics. Today I'm excited to show you how to paint this pretty autumn scene with some flowers, a tree, and a nice little lamppost here on the left side. In a few colors here, I've got some titanium white, primary yellow, luminous red, burnt sienna, phthalo green, and light blue violet. I have the following brushes here, my 5B set. I think we have roughly 37 sets left. So go ahead and get yours while you can. This is the third and final release. You'll never be able to get these brushes again. This is the final release. So we have a 20 flat, 1-inch mop, 14 filbert, 3 round, and a 2 rigger. The canvas I'm working on today is an 11 by 14 double primed and stretched canvas. Now it already came primed with gesso. Many canvases do from art stores now. If yours isn't, I do recommend applying 1 to 2 coats of gesso beforehand. Let it dry, sand if needed, and that will just really keep your painting nice and vibrant and lifelike for years to come. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with the very first step. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is start coming in with a little bit of pale yellow, and I'm going to make a pale buttery yellow here with some white and the primary yellow. Okay, and I'm just going to start adding little strips here. Remember, we're going to be layering over a little bit with some pink and then some blue, so I don't want to completely cover the canvas. We're also going to have a sun right about here, so you can just draw with the corner of your brush, just a simple little circle, and try to stay away from painting inside of that. I'm going to just add a little bit down here with a little bit more white. I want this painting to have a little bit more calm, muted tones rather than the bright, super bright neon paintings that I've been working on lately. I love those as well, but I like to offer different color palettes and different color schemes with my tutorials, so you guys all get a wide range and ideas of what you can do with different colors and paints. Now the next color I'm going to take is my red. A little bit of red goes a long way. You can mix that in with a bit of that yellow, and let's really calm it down by making it a soft pastel shade by adding some of that beautiful titanium white. And we're going to start to come around and partially overlap, pulling nice, gentle, sweeping strokes. We're going to come inside here, wrap around, partially over that yellow. See how we're starting to make the sun glow? We have a little bit of darker colors. When it's darker around the outside of the sun, it really complements the lightness. So you need some dark for light. They need each other, light and shadow. Okay, I'll just start adding a little bit more here. And then I'll come down on the bottom. And just dry brush. Now you know it's a dry brush when you get that scrapey sort of sound. There's enough paint in here that we can come in and add a little bit of color down there in with the yellow. I'm going to take a little bit more of my yellow now, and I'm going to make more of an orange just by lightly glazing over, just going around part of the red that we went over. So you can make more and more shades of peaches and orange by doing that. I'm going to go back over to just a little tiny bit of red here. I'm going to save the rest of the red for our tree and our flowers. So I'm just going to lightly go over and add a little bit more of the red and white now. I'm not using more red than I did before. I'm just applying another layer so it will saturate a little bit more naturally that way. I'm going to just lightly go around the sun again. There, we've got a nice glow. Okay, now we can rinse our brushes out. And the next color we're going to take is some of our blue. I'm just going to bring it up here so I have enough room on my palette for color mixing later. Just a little bit of blue, violet, white. Now, if you find that you've made your color a little bit too strong, you can easily go over it by adding a little bit of white. So we're going to start on the left corner here. Start to just sweep that in. And take it partially over. Overlap a little bit of where you left off with the pinky peachy mixture. Okay, and then we're going to come over on this side. Notice I'm not using a lot of paint. It's not necessary. You don't need to have big globs of paint on your brush. A little goes a long way, especially when we're just working on creating a really soft background. And so we'll just add a little bit in here. Our tree's going to be here, and this will just be peeking through. We'll have little bits of that light blue violet complementing the reds and the browns of our tree. Okay, so now what I want to do is come in this area here. I'm just going to tap a little and then gently go around. Now, if you happen to be painting on a wet canvas, say if your yellow is wet, mine's a little bit wet, it actually will make some really pretty neutral tones, a little bit more muted and earthy like. And then we can go over later once it's dry with a little bit more clean blue and white. But this will give us some really beautiful midtones and shadows. I'm just gonna take a little bit of this and come down here, add a little bit of this. I'm gonna just start to wiggle with the end of my brush. Same blue and white. You may need to pick up more. I have just a little bit on the very end of my brush. You see that? Just a little bit to work with. And I'm just going to start going around in little loops like this. And this will just give us a little bit more of a old stone, maybe a flagstone looking path. Then it'll just kind of disappear around this area here. When painting, perspective, something that's near, like closer to us in the foreground, for instance, it's going to be bigger and more in detail. Unless you are wanting to blur out the foreground, that's a whole other tutorial. But so bigger and wider closer to us, and then fade away and smaller in the distance. So that gives us this perspective. It's kind of triangle. That's one perspective angle to think about. And I'm just rinsing my brush off now. I'm going to take a little bit more blue and white. I'm going to add a little bit less white and more blue this time. See the difference? And what I want to do is start coming in right about where we left off with our pathway here. We're going to go up about 1 inch. So our path kind of just fades away into the distance. We're going to go up about 1 inch from there. Actually, this ends up being right in the middle of our canvas. So if you go right in the middle of your canvas with this line, or a little above or a little below, that's fine too. And it's kind of fun to play around and practice. We're going to leave a little space right in between and then continue on the next side over to the right. It can be a really interesting and fun exercise to paint the same landscape, maybe 4 different ways, exploring and adding your perspective, your like horizon lines a little lower or a little higher each time, and seeing how much of a difference that makes. Okay, so now I'm just going to come in and start pushing and tapping. Mix up some more blue and white here. This is just background trees, so you can use a stippler brush for this, a mop brush, or just stipple if you want. But I find just doing this with a flat brush is sufficient, and it gives me the look that I want and need for just background trees that I don't want to be in full focus. I'm gonna add a little bit in here as well. I'm going to take a little more. And I'm just going to lightly pull across here. We're just going to pull towards the path. And then it's going to get narrower and narrower, right? Because our path gets wider down here. So in a sense, it's going to be like another triangle here and another triangle sort of here. And we'll just fill this in. I'm going to pick up just a little bit of water. And this cloud here is dry. I'm going to start coming in with clean, little bit of the white and the blue, just on the corner. And see the difference now? Just adding these little fluffy squiggles gently inside there. And maybe just a little bit just floating in here. The colors are so pretty together. And what I want to do is take a little bit of my blue, red, and white. And make a light, soft mauvey color. And I'm going to add a little bit in here. I've got a lot of yellow in there, and it's fine, but I thought it would be pretty to show you guys another little color recipe here. Again, light blue violet, a little bit of luminous red and white. Okay, I'm going to take a little bit more of my blue, just straight blue now. And I'm going to come in down here along the bottom again and create these wiggles. I'm wiggling around with my brush and just making flat loopy shapes. So think of flat sort of ovals or even rounded rectangles, and don't try to make a pattern with them that makes sense. Like, you don't want to space everything out perfectly. You just want it to be kind of random. So if you notice a pattern happening, kind of just break that up by going over and adding another little stone. Then it just disappears back there. So we're going to paint our tree now using our round brush, and I'm going to take some burnt sienna and a little bit of green. This will darken our brown a few shades. Okay, so we're gonna have our tree from right about here, but an inch or so over from the right. And we're gonna bring it up, up, and then it's gonna get thinner and thinner. So we'll start it right here, make a little line, and then make it a little thicker. And then we're gonna bring it up, and then I'm gonna start twisting with my brush. Adding some little branches in here, just a little twist, and then let off with the amount of pressure you're using. Try to load your brush on the end of it so you have enough paint on the tip of your brush so that you don't have to push too hard to get the paint out. You don't need it anywhere down by the ferrule, you just want to have it mostly on the end. I'm going to turn my brush over so the handle's pointing up, just because it's easier for me, but you can paint your branches any way you like that feels comfortable. Then I'm just going to use the leftover paint here to start adding some dark shadows and depth underneath all the flowers and leaves that we're going to be painting after. You can just use that there. Okay, I'm going to take a little bit of burnt sienna, a little bit of white, and a little bit of red. So brown, red, and white. And just warm the left side of the tree up. Take a little bit more white in there. Mix that all up. The white will also help it to not be see-through. Go over to my liner brush now. Make sure you have water in it. And we'll add a few thinner branches. Load it like you do with a round brush, only you'll probably need a little bit more water. Thin the paint out, and then very lightly, just very little pressure. Using just the tip of the brush, but see the difference in width from the round brush to this one. So it's helpful to have both brushes. I like to use both in my paintings for thinner and thicker. Take just a little bit more water on my brush. This one's kind of floating here, so I'm going to connect that to the rest of the tree. Okay, so while that's drying, let's take our flat brush, some burnt sienna, a little bit of green, and just start tapping around and a little bit in and out, tap over part of the path, leaving some spaces. And we'll do the same thing over here. Just want to add a little bit more of the green with the brown this time. And this will start to look like some dense leaves and a little bit more shadow. So we'll start a little bit back here. Then we'll be adding our lamppost over part of that, but we can come right down here and add just a little bit now. I love the color it makes, the warmth from the burnt sienna with this deep green creates such a gorgeous shade. So I'm pushing and tapping on the edge, the corner, to get those shapes, and then changing the direction by turning and tapping differently every time I push and tap, let off, turn my brush. Okay, let's take our round brush. We're still waiting for this to dry a little bit, so we can just come into our green and blue, mix the two up together. Add a little bit of white. And gently push, wiggle, twist, and let off for some simple leaves. You can apply this over top of your existing leaves that we've got there, or just create other ones. And by doing so, we'll layer this up and just slowly build up our foliage. I'm going to take my filbert brush, and while we still wait for the branches to dry, let's come over here and start adding a little bit of yellow and red to start. Just mix up the yellow and the red, a little bit of white, and we're going to start tapping just below over part of the blue. And we're going to come over here and do the same thing. We're going to bring it down a little bit lower here. I'm going to take a little bit more red this time. And I'm going to start underneath the yellow, partially go over where you left off with it. I'm going to bring it a little bit here, but leave this space without the red. Take a little bit of burnt sienna and mix that up. A little bit more red in there. A bit of white. I'm just going to tap and turn my brush. Tap, lift, and turn. Tap, lift, turn. Tap, lift, turn. Same thing over here. Tap, lift, and turn. I rinsed my brush out. I've got a little bit of water in it. It's just damp from rinsing it out. I'm going to take a thin amount of this. It's thinner because I have a little bit of water in the brush, a little bit of dampness. I'm going to start to blend out hints of that warmth over our path here. Start adding a little bit more color. Not everywhere. You still want to have some blue. Okay, now we can come in and start building up our tree. We're going to be using our mop brush. It's dry, no water needed for this step. And I'm going to start by taking some white and red. And start on the top here. Tap, lift, and turn. Mix up a little bit more. See how pretty the blue is in the background underneath there? Come right over in front of the tree trunk. Let's start to take a little bit of yellow and some more white, mix that together. Got a gorgeous golden peachy shade, very similar to this. I'm going to take a little bit of white, mix that up, and lightly add a little bit in here. Okay, now what I want to do is go right into my burnt sienna, mix that up. And add just a little bit for some darker leaves and shadows. Let's take red, white, and burnt sienna. So you can see the difference. It's a little more pinky because I've left the yellow out. Okay, I'm going to rinse my brush out and use a clean and dry one. I'm going to take some blue violet and I'm going to tap in between here, in between those two areas. over part of the tree trunk. I'm going to take some white. Soften. Let's go around in little circles. Very little pressure. Just trying to create a little bit more of out of focusness here. I'm going to take just a little touch of that blue, add it to the last pink, white, and burnt sienna, and I'm going to add just a little hint of that in there. Let's take just a little bit more. I have a little bit of water in my brush, and I'm just going to sweep from the sides here. Okay, now we can start coming in with our lamp post. I'm going to paint the post itself first using a flat brush. This will help give me a little bit cleaner lines. And I'm going to take my green and brown. Really want to have it on the end of your brush, so once you mix it up, just load the end of your brush. And we're going to have the lamp shade right up here, so let's just start from right about here, push and bring it down. You don't have to push too hard, just glide it down. And then pull across a little bit, and then a little bit narrower right there. So I'll take a little bit of blue, and this will make it show up a little bit better. So a little like that, and then right in the middle. And I want to add a little bit more width to it, so I'm going to just go over it again. And then I'm going to add a line across the top of that. I'm going to switch over to our round brush now. Same colors. And I'm going to dab the ends and then pull them into the center. I'm going to add a little line like this. That curves down. And I'm going to add a little bit of height here and then curve that down. Add a line on top of that so the ends, this part is narrower and this top part here is a little bit wider. I'm going to go up about 1 inch and just pull a line across. We're going to come up, make a rounded top, gently kind of scoop down. Think of a rounded triangle. And paint it in. I'm going to add a little bit of blue inside. I'm going to add a little bit of blue inside here as well. Now you might need to dry it off first, or it might work over wet. I'm going to add a little line over there, little highlight here again. Okay, clean brush, just because the paint was starting to dry inside. I'm going to add a little curl in and one on the other side. I'm going to add a little line right there on the top. And then I'm going to add a little diamond shape. You can make up your own designs and create your own signature lamppost. It's kind of fun. Just think of shapes. You could add a little heart on the top if you wanted, or a little fleur-de-lis. Okay, now I'm going to come down on an angle from the corner here and the corner here. So not from here and not from here, but just underneath. Okay, so now we can come inside and start coming in with a little bit of our warm light. I'm going to take some yellow and red. I'm just going to go over part of the dark shade there, come around inside the edges, just like that, and then I'm going to take some white and a little bit of yellow. And then a little bit of white, just like that. You can add a little bit here and there. I'm going to take a little bit of burnt sienna now with a clean brush. I'm going to just go right over around the corners, right over the top, around those corners, and down to the base of our shade. I'm going to add a little bit of that green and blue clean brush inside the lampshade. Just a little bit inside of our diamond there. And then I'm going to mix up some more brown and green, and just have a little bit on the ends of my brush here. I'm going to add a little curl here, give a little bit more water on my brush, and a little curl here. Now again, this is just me making up a little design. I paint a lot of lampposts, and I like to make up little designs for my lampposts to make them more interesting. I'm going to add a heart inside here. Now take our liner brush, a little bit of water, and our green and brown. I'm going to go over the outline again and the top. Make that a little bit darker. Just sort of clean it up. A line here, a line here. And we're going to add 3 lines inside. We're going to start here. One here, and then one right there. Gonna go right across, and then right here. Now you can put them a little bit on an angle on the sides there. That'll create a little bit more roundness if you want. Now I'm going to take my round brush, a little bit of that brown and green, some water, and I'm going to just come along here and outline. I'm going to add a little bit of blue in there just to soften that a little bit. Make some of these lines and stones a little bit more visible. But yeah, just by adding a little bit of water, you can really thin that paint out and be able to paint thinner lines and just feel like you have a little bit more control with your brush. I'm going to use a little bit more blue here. Thin it out with some more water again. Make those loops smaller. Add a little bit of white. Smaller and smaller and smaller. Add a little bit of shadowing in here. With a clean brush, I'm going to take some yellow and white. Little dab on the little ball of paint on the end of my brush. I'm going to push and tap lots of little dots here for a little bit of texture and separation within those bushes back there. I'm going to add a little bit along the inside here. I'm going to sneak in a little bit of color, yellow, right around this area. Blend out over part of the path. Okay, I'm going to bring in some yellow and green. I'm going to mix these colors up. I'm going to use a little bit more yellow than green. And I'm going to start to add some leaves in here. Take yellow, green, and white, make it a little bit brighter. Once you mix it up, get it on the end of your brush, push, tap, and dab, turn, change the direction. We're going to bring this in over top of the base of our lamp post. We'll add a little bit on this side as well. Not trying to make perfect leaf shapes, more impressionistic. Adding a little bit of burnt sienna now to my yellow and my green will give me more of an olive shade of green. See that? Take some more of my red, some more white. First, I'm going to take some red and white. Have a little bit on the end of my brush. And we're just going to start back here. First, they're going to be far away, so we're just going to add these little dabs, stagger them around. Again, make it look more random than strategically placed in a neat and tidy pattern. I'm going to add a little bit more red and make them a little bigger. I don't want my paint to be too thick at this point because I want to dry this off and then come in with some highlights. And it'll be harder to add highlights if the paint is really thick. Now these ones are pretty much bright enough. I'm adding just little background ones here. We're not going to see a lot of light and shadow on them, but the ones in here I want to have a little bit more lines in them in light and dark. While those are drying, I'm going to take some of the dark green and I'm going to come around and add a little bit more color and shadows here. And take a little bit of the brown as well to tone some of the green. So what it does is it's toning the amount of blueness that Thalo green is a very cool blue green. So it just kind of brings it back to more of a dark earthy base. But then I'll take a little bit of white with that green and add some cool shadows in here, making just a pretty greeny turquoise shade. Could add a little bit more of the blue violet. Okay, so now I'm going to take some white with just a little bit of the red in there, more white than red. And I'm just going to start adding little wiggly lines. You can create little wiggly circles or half circles. Use a thinner brush too if you feel more comfortable, like a really small liner brush if you want to add more intricate lines. And you can paint any kind of flowers that you want. These are resembling some roses. Okay, so I'm going to use my filbert brush now, and I'm going to take some green, brown, and yellow and make that olive shade again. And I'm going to tap out a few little bushes along the side here. I want to start making this look a little bit more overgrown. Okay, then I'll take a little bit of white in with that, mix that up. Then I'm going to take a little bit of my pink, add a few little dabs. It might just be little buds, rose buds. I'm going to use my round brush now, brown and dark green. I'm going to come just underneath here, in between some of these areas, to create shadow, some shadows on the path. And then a little bit of greenery here for those buds. By taking a bit of white, a little bit of yellow, and making this blurry. I'm going to slightly go over some of these wet roses and just blur those colors up and make it look really dreamy back there. Okay, so I want to add one last thing to this lamppost, a little creeping ivy vine here wrapped around. It's going to be very quick and easy and simple, you guys will see. Using a round brush, yellow, green, and a little bit of brown. Just gonna add 3 little taps. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then not every single leaf will be fully visible, so we could just have like half a leaf here. Okay, and then I'm going to take the liner brush, some water, same colors, and we'll be able to come around and add some vines. A few little dabs. Just to finish it off. Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed watching this one. Have fun painting along. Take care, everybody. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon in another video. Bye!